had asked a question as to what your 3 most important public safety concerns. And I can actually say that before COVID began, the biggest concern in this community was bicycles. Unfortunately, that has changed since COVID. And right now, the 3 most important public safety concerns are the increase in violent crime, homelessness, but not to be forgotten, bicycles. So again, I want to thank everyone for not even hesitating to participate in the panel. And so let's dive right in. I'm going to ask my first question, and it is basically the following. The City Council, in a vote of 32-7 with the support of our mayor, passed a budget which cut the New York Police Department budget by $1 billion. These cuts in police funding come at a time where we are all seeing it in the newspaper when violent crime is rising in the 19th precinct. For example, over the last 28 days, we've experienced 27 robberies versus 7 last year, and 14 armed robberies versus 1 last year, for a whopping 1,300% increase. So I'm going to ask our council members to start off by saying, do you believe do you believe the budget cuts and the recent legislation have emboldened criminals to become more aggressive?
I'll start, and then I can hand it over to Ben. And I'll let Ben talk a little bit about the actual mechanics of the budget. But I'll start by saying today, even today in New York City, the mayor has basically asked every single social service agency and every single agency to make further and deepening cuts. And we have to recognize that we're in a fiscal crisis. And as you think about the pandemic, the fiscal crisis, the uncertainty of this moment, it is I am, and I think everybody here is deeply concerned, especially on the uptick in violent crime, and particularly those that include guns. And I think we're going to talk about guns in a little bit, but it's extremely clear to all of us that we need a larger solution around gun violence, particularly illegal guns that are making their way into New York City, which continues to be the biggest problem we have. The state elected officials have done almost everything they need to do. I would say everything they need to do to tackle our gun laws here in New York City. They're still coming in, and we need a solution that is much larger than just New York State, that is national. And I'm not going to get political, but we do need a national government that will actually take on federal laws that will bring in guns into our city. And it's not really our neighborhood entirely. It's a number of concentrated precincts here. On the budget, we are facing a fiscal crisis like we have not seen. I certainly have not seen in my age, and I think nationwide we're seeing an increase around shootings and gun violence. I don't think it's alone to New York City, and I think it is tied to a number of factors that are pandemic related. I'm just going to answer your question. I don't think our budget decreases here around the NYPD are through attrition. And so that means that we are delaying classes, we are cost controls around overtime, we switched out functions around, particularly on school safety agents, we switched them to different agencies. There was a big conversation that needed to be had about the role of the police department, which should be focused on violent crime and getting guns off the streets and things like that in places where perhaps they didn't need to be involved in the day-to-day functions of that other agencies could perform. But when you're talking about anything that's happening, particularly right now, the cuts that we focused on were through attrition. You will see you will see over the course of this fiscal year a decrease in the headcount. But things that are happening right now, I don't believe are tied. I want to be really clear. I don't think are tied to the budget or to new laws that we passed. Some that are even getting challenged right now in court. I think we are in a flashpoint. I'll just be honest. I think we are in a flashpoint moment right now with a lot of factors that are going into an uptick in particularly violent crime and particularly those that are involve a firearm. And I think we're going to do a lot to address getting guns off the street. On the particular budget, though, I think it would be impossible for in a few weeks' time to be able to blame a budget that does cost control over the course of a year to reduce headcount on any particular incident that's happening right now. And I do know that everybody on this call has a relationship with our precinct, the 19th precinct. They are responsive. They are, when I call them, I saw somebody, so I do call them in the last few weeks. I've been talking to all my precincts about what's going on. I don't think there's a singular factor here. And I I am the chair of the Criminal Justice Committee. I've been talking to the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice a lot about what's driving these numbers. And I think it's a lot of factors that go into it. But as we get to guns, I want to focus a little bit about the need for us to desperately take steps.
Ben?
Sure. I want to thank Keith for his leadership on criminal justice. I'll just do a quick thing for folks who may not know me. So I'm Councilmember Ben Kalis. I do want to thank Valerie and Liz and the rest of the East 72nd Street Neighborhood Association for organizing in 2016. And I appreciate the credit from Valerie. I think I'm just here to make sure we support and build as many community neighborhood associations. For my part, like the congress member, I actually grew up on East 72nd at 420 East 72nd with my grandparents and my single mom. We lived together in a 2-bedroom. I went to Park East Synagogue and for day school as well as Bronx Science. Now, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I know there's a couple of other electeds who are parents here. And what I'll tell you is that her safety, my family's safety, and all of our collective safety is a paramount concern. And I will note, you may hear her in the background. This is the new normal, and so please, if you are wearing headphones, you may wish to take them out. My staff says it will help you preserve hearing. This is the new normal. And just while we're talking about safety, for the past couple of months, we've been very focused just on the pandemic. We've opened about 350 beds to treat patients for coronavirus on Roosevelt Island. That's still open. We also opened 200 beds at Hospital for Special Surgery right here in the district at the height of the pandemic. We're also been distributing free masks and sanitizer with your neighborhood association. If you're on tonight's call, I'd like to ask if you're willing to be a building captain to personally or through a building service worker make masks and sanitizers available to your neighbors. We literally have these gigantic gallon jugs that you can refill your personal hand sanitizer with. So happy to do that, and every elected on this call has access to that. And then some of the things Valerie already mentioned, but we've been working closely with 72nd Street Neighborhood Association on bike safety, particularly survey and grading that reduced the number of e-bikes. We have the Eastside Task Force for Homeless Outreach and Services with Faith Frazier, one of your leaders, on addressing homelessness in the district, not to mention the new big covered trash cans on every corner in the district that was piloted with your...
Okay, Ben, you gotta go.
Fine, I'll go straight to this. So just to echo some of what Keith was saying about the city's budget, he and I agree 99% of the time. In this case, I actually voted against the document, against the budget, because I felt it wasn't honest in that the police were not actually defunded. And so when people say, oh, we defunded the police, Jesse from my team will paste this into the chat, but there's this great article in City and State that actually shows what the cuts were. I think I'm just very upset. I'll be a little bit more political than my colleague, perhaps, but President Trump lied on national TV saying that the city had fired police as a result of the budget. And I can tell you there are police officers who actually killed a man on video, killed Eric Garner on video, and only one of the 5 has actually been terminated. So we are not seeing the reduction in a head count in an immediate way. And I'd actually even go further to say that today, in 2020, we have more police officers than Bloomberg had and more police officers than Giuliani had. And we still remain one of the biggest police forces in the country. We spend over $6 billion a year on it. And I think when we talk about what's going on, I don't think that anything with funding, and just to be very, very clear, $400 million was moving school safety agents. Those are the nice people who greet you at the door of a school, from the NYPD budget to the DOE budget. That was the only change. We moved, I think we did a $10 million move for the people who write traffic tickets from NYPD to DOT. We moved the the homeless outreach responsibilities, which we'll go into, from NYPD to DHS. And then we said we would cut the NYPD's overtime budget by $250 million, but the Independent Budget Office for the City of New York has already come back and said we're likely to go over budget for police overtime by $400 million. So one thing I will tell you is the City Council is going to have to go back and make more cuts in November. And I'm sure you hear from our state electeds that that's going to have to happen too.